Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here. Our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series, to be precise. We have reached episode number 128, the 128th trolley stop here of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, as we continue on with the 3-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight Series this month. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager here at Empowered Publicity. Thank you so much for your continued support of Empowered Publicity and for the Children's Book Spotlight Series. If you are a new viewer / listener / shining star to the program, welcome and thank you for spending some time with us. If you are new to our neighborhood, boy, do we have a lovely treat for you. If you take the time and you just close your eyes and you kind of feel there's a little change in the air, right? You can kind of feel that little crisp in the air, even depending upon where you may live. Yes, the calendar for us here in the United States and in Canada and our side of the neighborhood, our side of the world, is turning from summer to autumn. And I know that many treasured memories I had growing up, you know, you have some warm or some cold apple cider, depending upon what your taste buds may like. You see the beautiful falling leaves from the trees. That reminds me of the John Denver song, Falling Leaves. And it's perfect hoodie weather as well, too. Again, depending upon where you're at. I'm not cracking out the hoodie yet because, of course, you know, we've been out here in San Diego over the course of the past year or so. But let's be honest, sometimes it can be difficult to accept and to navigate change. Change is one of the constants in life, right? And sometimes we can even have some resistance from shifting from summer because it's beautiful outside, it's sunny, it's gorgeous. And autumn means that it's, you know, less daylight. It can mean, you know, that more cold is on the horizon, again, depending upon where you may live. But thanks to several of our favorite furry neighbors, we no longer need to resist change. We can accept it. We can navigate it with love, and we can actually look forward to it and all of the wonderful things that lie ahead on the other side of change. We are super excited because there is a very special time that's happening in the heart and the life of one of our favorite neighbors in Virginia. We encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest here on episode number 128 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. You can visit laurarenauld.com, or you can head on over to amazon.com if that is your preferred online vehicle of choosing. The brand new release in the Woodland Friends series, SQUIRREL'S sweater, is now available while on Amazon. You can leave your 5-star review if you feel guided to do so, as that is one of the many ways that you can support Laura, to share with her that she's doing such great work for children, parents, families, educators all across the country and all around the world. And of course, if you would like to learn more about the rest of the Woodland Friends series, both of the 2 previous books are now available as well. Bear's Bicycle and Porcupine's Pie. And of course, one of our favorite books that's not a part of the Woodland Friends series, Fred's Big Feelings, because, I mean, come on, it's about Mr. Rogers, so you have to love it just based upon that. We have the links below to not only Laura's official website, not only her social media platforms as well, so you can continue to interact with her post-Children's Book Spotlight series. We also have the links to purchase your copies of Fred's Big Feelings, Bear's Bicycle, and Porcupine's Pie, but also episode numbers, there we go, 90 and 114, the 2 previous trolley stops of our featured guest, Laura Renauld, who is joining us again for another anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight series. This is turning into a rite of passage, Laura. So again, our featured guest here, the trolley goes from San Diego all the way over to Virginia. Laura Renauld, children's author, joining us here, the creator of the Woodland Friends series. Laura, thank you so much for spending some time with us here once again in our neighborhood. How are things with you today?
Oh, great. Thank you so much for having me, John. It's a pleasure to be back again.
Yes, this is becoming like a really super fun rite of passage. Just doing the preparation leading into our Children's Book Spotlight series. It's hard to believe that 1 year ago that we were sharing Fred's big feelings, and here we are now. There's all of these wonderful books that have come out through the Woodland Friends series. Before we begin, of course, for all of you, especially who are new to the program, if this message of learning how to accept and to navigate, as well as appreciate change, if all of these wonderful things that we have talked about thus far, just the high vibe energy of episode number 128 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, if it's lifting your spirits, if you feel that it needs to be shared with someone in need, someone that you know that is having a real struggle with embracing change, learning to accept change, we encourage you, if you haven't had the chance to do so, to subscribe to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel and to share this very special trolley stop that is episode number 128 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. This past year has been wonderful for you, Laura, and I think, perfect place to begin is, and of course, we're going to dive into the pages of Squirrel Sweater and how things are coming full circle for the Woodlands Friends series. What has this past year been like for you? Because in many instances, for a lot of people with the pandemic, it has been a time of change. For some people, it's been a very, on the surface, it could look like a very bad time in their life. I take a look at what you have been doing for children, for parents, for families, and for educators, and you've been bringing so many children all around the world together, bringing families closer together. What has this past year been like for you from when you first joined us last September to where we stand right now? If you can kind of share a few things that come to mind.
Oh, yeah, I think that's so true. I find myself in thinking about the pandemic in different ways, and there have been so many things that you could get down about and be really negative about, which is perfectly reasonable in the type of unexpected, chaotic kind of time that we've been in. But there have been a lot of silver linings and underlying blessings that I could never have expected in this past year. Having the two Woodland Friends series books come out this year. Of course, those were in the works before the pandemic, but I think they really lent themselves to encouraging kids to get outside and enjoy time in the summer with Bear's Bicycle, and now with Squirrel's Sweater, as you mentioned, it really talks about change and how that's a natural part of life, and it may not be the most comfortable thing, but there are ways to be supported through it with your friends and to hold on to those memories that are dear to you. And so I think that having those books come out and be supporting children and families during this difficult time has been a real blessing for me.
And I'm just, I also want to mention as well too that one of my favorite publishers out there in the world of kid lit. Again, if you're having difficulty embracing change, just say the phrase Beaming Books, by the way, just like your face beams when you say Beaming Books. For those who are being introduced to your work for the first time, or they've heard about the Woodlands Friends series, and it's like, I heard about those books, but I want to be able to learn a little bit more. Could you take us back to the origin? Because obviously we've had Porcupine's Pie, the beautiful cover art that you now see on screen, and then Bear's Bicycle, which we talked about in our last trolley stop together, episode number 114. So before we dive into the pages of Squirrel Sweater, could you really share with our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, where the creation of this first began, the origin story, if you will, of the Woodlands Friends series?
Sure. Porcupine's Pie came to me as a title, and that started when I was doing Story Storm, which was Tara Lazar's Picture Book Idea Month challenge, before it was Story Storm. And so as a writer, I enjoy challenging myself in different ways. There's an amazing children's literature community online, and so to do different challenges like that kind of gets my creative juices flowing, and I feel like I'm part of that community. So there was a number of years ago a prompt about how to, and so one of the things I jotted down in my writer's notebook that day was how to make a porcupine pie. And I didn't exactly know where it was going to go, but that title stuck with me, and I played around with it. And eventually it turned into this fall story, sort of like a Thanksgiving story, fall feast. And the friends that you see in all these books came together for the first time there, and that was all about kindness and generosity and sharing, and how we can come together to make something new when things don't go as planned. So that was kind of the first of the books. It was published by Beaming Books in their first list as they were making a new imprint at 1517 Media. And that won the picture book writing contest that they were holding. And that spun into these other stories because I realized as I was doing children's school visits and school programs that when I was sharing Porcupine's Pie, I had 4 friends, and it was a fall story, and there are 4 seasons, and most of the time I'm talking with, children that are learning about seasons and learning about, story structures that are the straightforward plot structure of a narrative. And so it was the perfect way to get them thinking about story titles and characters if they came up with some ideas for other characters and what season would they be in. And so there was I gave them a little lesson in alliteration, since my first book started with Porcupine's Pie. I wanted all the ideas to come out with the same letters in the title. And so I got some amazing ideas from the kids, and it got me thinking, well, there's definitely a series here. I can't remember precisely if Bear's Bicycle came out in those brainstorming sessions. The one I do remember was Doe's Donuts, and I thought that would make a very fun story. Doe's story is in process, and it's going in a different direction than Donuts, since Porcupine already had the food element wrapped up. So, but yeah, so that was kind of where it started, and how it kept going. And I'm just so pleased to have a series where each character gets to shine.
I love that. And there's something about squirrels, isn't there? I found myself here in San Diego. There's one of the most beautiful parks in the world, Balboa Park. And I was sitting there about a little over a month ago now. And there's a beautiful rose garden there. And I had a blanket that I was sitting on and just staring off into the beautiful sky with the sunset, the blue cloud, or the blue sky, and then turned into the sunset. And there were these squirrels that were right near me. They've got their nuts or whatever they're eating, and they're chomping, and they got super close. And I had to ask myself, I said, is this the closest I've ever been to an animal? I mean, besides maybe like a dog that I had, or if I met a new cat or something like that, right? There's something about not only squirrels, but there's something about the beautiful soul that is squirrel in this series. One of the things that I really love about the Woodland Friends series is that each character has their own moment to shine, but then they also play complementary roles in the other books. So for example, when I saw how, Bear returns, I absolutely love Bear's Bicycle. And then I see Bear returning, I'm like, there's Bear. And that was just, so super cool, because it would be very easy to kind of not have Bear be a part of the book. Kind of fast forwarding to the now, bring it up to the now with Squirrel Sweater. It has very deep meanings for a simplistic children's book on the surface, and it has the connection. One of the things that I also really love about it is the connection to grandmas, and that's one of over the past 3 years with the Children's Book Spotlight series, we've had the chance to share different books, not only with the Children's Book Spotlight series, but the Neighborly Reviews bookcast with David Newell, of course, from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, whether it be Mark Mago's My Super Grandma or Aaron Meeser's My Day with Grandma. So just that connection with grandma, I really love. For those who are wanting to learn more about Squirrel Sweater, could you help us go inside the pages, the overall story arc of how, Squirrel is feeling a little bit, she's kind of experiencing many different emotions at the same point in time, but things turn out really well, and even in a beautifully unexpected way by the time the story concludes.
Right. Squirrel is the winter story in the series, and so at this beginning, because I wanted Bear to definitely be a part of the story, and bears hibernate, I knew this couldn't be a middle of the winter story, so this has to be a very beginning of the winter story. And so Squirrel is getting ready for winter. She's done all things on her checklist, like gather all her acorns, and she's almost completed her to-do list, but she has one more thing to do. She needs to find her favorite sweater. So she does that and puts it on and discovers that it is way too small for her. And she just thinks, oh, it must have shrunk. I'm going to have my friends help me figure out how I can fix this. And that's when she goes down the path, as the other characters do, takes a journey to find her friends. And they each help in their own way to try to figure out how to make this sweater fit her better, keep her warm. But there is a deeper reason for why this is her favorite sweater. And when she ends up at Porcupine's den, she and Porcupine try to stretch it out, and it tears, and she gets very sad. And it comes out then that it wasn't just her favorite sweater because her favorite color is red or anything. It was her favorite because her granny knit it for her, and she thought it would always fit, and those memories are associated with the sweater, but it doesn't fit her anymore. So what do we do now? And Porcupine supports her, and she decides there are other ways that I can hold on to those memories. So she creates something new with her sweater, and all of the things that her friends helped her with as well can get all wrapped up together in a memory pillow that she creates. And there are directions for how to make one of your own at the very back of the book.
We're going to kindly put a pin in that point and talk about that, because I just love the whole idea of making your own memory pillow. With us as human beings, it can be very, we also ride in our own way, the range of emotions, the rainbow of emotions that Squirrel experiences. We experience that as human beings as well too. And Squirrel is learning to navigate and accept change. And I feel that, again, one of the constants in life that I talked about beforehand is change. And there's been so much change happening in a relatively short period of time. If you kind of take a look at, from when the pandemic began, which was back in, March of 2020, all the way through the present moment, the beginning of the fall autumn season of 2021, if you kind of look back for many years and you kind of looked over like a year and a half span, sometimes, we always have change, but it necessarily wouldn't seem very fast, or a lot of it at one point in time. So there's been a lot of people, especially children, that maybe have been overwhelmed. And there's a difference between just, okay, well, hey, it's, my favorite restaurant is closed and I need to find a new restaurant. That involves change. But if it's something such as, little ones being with their teachers, being with their friends in the physical school setting, to staying at home and having distance, remote, virtual learning, that's a change in itself. From the capacity, and we're going to get back into the book momentarily, but this is just one of the things that came to mind, is that from the perspective of a children's author and just kind of observing children and parents' influence and just the whole dynamic of change, along with being a mother yourself on your end of things, how do you feel that the way in which change has been happening has changed? It's a lot of change happening, Laura.
Yes. No, you're right. It does feel like things have, the change has escalated. And not only is it changing, but we seem to have, we're thrown into all these different situations. We have to adapt to it quickly as well. So for children, there's a lot said about how resilient they are, and that is true. Kids are flexible and they can try different things, but it doesn't mean it doesn't take a toll on them as well, and the families that are supporting them. So in my family, as well as in the neighborhood that the kids that I see around, it was a real struggle to have to step back and not be as social, not be part of those tighter knit friendship groups, and and change the way that, that you interact with people. I know one of my sons did like Zoom play dates for a while. I'm sure a lot of kids did that. And he was resistant to it because it wasn't the way he liked to do it the best. He wanted to play with his friend in person, but without that opportunity, eventually he came around and kind of embraced the new normal for the time we were in. And they found some very creative ways to still have their fun. So I think, change can be difficult, but it can also be a growing experience, as long as we are supporting those that are going through that change at the same time. I don't think it would be as positive an experience ultimately if you had to do it all by yourself.
That's true. And there's always on the children's book spotlight series where normally we kind of have this part be a little bit later, but this is, again, it's kind of coming to mind earlier, is that we always like, over the past 3 years, I always love helping those that tune into the program, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, to be able to receive some tangible information, practical information in terms of tips, tools, suggestions, things that you can integrate right now. For those who are tuning in and they're really having a hard time with change, some people you can maybe look at, and this, I really don't like to be dense and abrasive on the children's book spotlights, but sometimes people are very hard-headed, and that's just kind of like who they're. It's like, this is my way or the highway, as the expression goes. This is how it has to be. But change is something that doesn't have to be feared. It can be embraced. What are some things that come to mind, ways to be able to let go of that fear and that stranglehold on change, and to really step into more of an energy, more of a sense of embracing change and even loving change? What are a few things that come to mind that you would like to be able to share?
Well, wow. Yeah, that's a really good point, that change can be embraced and it can be something that you really grow through. I think having that open-mindedness, being able to be willing to try new things, I think makes it trying things that are changing, or being able to accept those changes, can be very much more positive in that way. I think if I can give an example from Squirrel's sweater, she is trying to ignore the fact that what she's really bothered by is that these memories are associated with the sweater, and she doesn't want to let go of that. So being able to take a different perspective and see that those, in her case, the memories they might be wrapped up in a sweater, but it doesn't mean that they're gone if the sweater is not doing its original job. So she discovers that she can take that and repurpose it and still have something that reminds her of her grandmother. So I think in our own everyday lives as well, I think changing perspectives, being able to look at things from a different angle, might give us a new vantage point from which to accept things that are different, or be able to try out new things, even if they're not the way we want them to be.
Squirrels bring a lot of healing into our lives right now, needless to say, Laura. Again, for all of you who are joining us here, our 3-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight series continues with our featured guest here on the program, Laura Renauld, joining us here in episode number 128 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. We are sharing the exciting brand new release, just released, courtesy of our friends at Beaming Books, Squirrel's Sweater. It is now available along with the other two wonderful books in the Woodland Friends series, Porcupine's Pie and Bear's Bicycle, you can head on over to Laura's official website at laurarenauld.com, the link of which we have below in the description, along with her social media platforms. If Amazon.com is your preferred online vehicle of choice, the holiday season is just around the corner. You can purchase your copies of Squirrel's Sweater, Porcupine's Pie, and Bear's Bicycle. If you feel guided to do so, you can leave 5-star reviews for any or all 3 of the books in the Woodland Friends series. Of course, that's a little tip of the cap that you can give to Laura on your end of things to let her know that she's doing such an amazing job for children, parents, families, educators, and for all of us who love great children's books in the process. Wow, it's so interesting because I think that children's books, they're so simple at their core, but there's just so much good that comes from them. There's a lot of conversation that can happen. There's a lot of ahas that can happen for children and for parents and for families. And I'm a huge proponent of your work. I think that you're doing such, just the characters, the messages that you're talking about. I'm so excited for you. I think I probably have mentioned that on many occasions on past trolley stops with the Children's Book Spotlight series. I also like how you talk to young readers about transforming the old into the new. And you had touched upon that briefly because, the old can be the familiar, right? It's kind of like Linus's security blanket. If you're a fan of the Peanuts, and he went everywhere with that thing, right? But just envision, just imagine, all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and our fellow shining stars, just envision there's something even more beautiful that's trying to come into your life. And if you're holding on to the old, it's kind of like whatever the universe is trying to bring into your life can't come through. So the old and the familiar, maybe not necessarily old, but the familiar serves its purpose. But, it's just so important, especially right now, to allow new things to be able to come in. And if I may share a very vulnerable story, if I may, with you, Laura, when I saw the connection immediately that Squirrel had with Granny Gray. I also love the message, and this is something I'd like you to talk about momentarily, if that's okay with you, is the importance of keeping the memories in your heart. So I remember after my grandmother had passed away, and I think I may have mentioned this story a couple of times over the past 3 years on the program. After my grandmother had passed away 8 years ago, I went to a floral shop with my mother and my sister to get some flowers for the wake. Normally when someone passes, a traditional thing is you have flowers at the wake, flowers at the funeral kind of thing. And I saw this beautiful crystal cross. Now, I necessarily didn't, I felt this strong connection to it, but, it was kind of like we were just there for the flowers, and, I wanted to get the crystal cross, but, just getting the flowers, out the door we go. So I get a phone call from my father, and he said, John, when you head back to the funeral home, several of your colleagues had purchased a flower arrangement for Babcia. Babcia being Polish for grandmother, of course. And I kind of, I didn't necessarily dismiss it, but I said, okay, cool, I'll check it out once I get there. And I remember going to the funeral home, and my jaw dropped when I walked in because I saw that crystal cross in the center of the flower arrangement. That now it maybe wasn't it was the exact same cross, but it wasn't the one that I was looking at. Just a little kind of clarification for the story. But I share this because I remember I was visiting someone very close to me in intensive care several years ago. And I brought that crystal cross with me to the hospital. Where I used to live in Buffalo, there were these 20 clunky steps up to my front door. And I put the crystal cross in my pocket. And I share this because, I was kind of like feeling a little rushed and ungrounded. And so the crystal cross goes down the steps. And one might think it shattered into a million pieces. It didn't. The cross stayed intact. Now, there was a few little chips on different sides of it. So I kind of went back to what happened with Squirrel in the story and how the sweater tears and she's very upset and she's got this strong connection with my grandmother. And that was my grandmother's way of saying two things, I feel, to me. One is, John, are you ready to accept yourself as perfectly imperfect? That was a big thing for me. But a reminder that the memories that I have will always be in my heart. That's something that's very big for kids, but it's also very important for us as adults, because kids, they stay connected to their childlike innocence. Simultaneously, they're still going through the grieving process for maybe the first time, or it's a very new experience for themselves. Talk to us, if you could, about the importance of that, especially right now, connecting to that knowing that even though if someone that we love passes away, or even someone is no longer in our life, why it's important for us to have that connection, that knowing that the memories will forever be in your heart.
Yeah. Grief is a tricky one. I mean, everybody goes through it in their own way. And I think children, like you said, are often going through it for the first time if they're at the age that they're reading or being read to with picture books. So having the message that, yes, this person may be gone physically, but that doesn't mean that we can't still love them. It doesn't mean that we can't remember them, or that we can't be happy and enjoy the memories that we have of them. And it's a way, I think, being able to share stories like Squirrel's Sweater help kids to understand that you can take those memories and do something with them. They can stay in your head if that's comfortable and that's what you want to do, is just to recall. But a lot of times, I think true for adults as well, that, using our hands and creating something meaningful can be a really healing experience, and it can help us connect those memories with something physical that we can hold or look at, and then can be a lovely reminder of those people that we hold dear, even if they're not with us anymore.
And it provides not even just comfort, but it really just provides this almost, like I'll use that Linus blanket example. It's like that blanket of love that's always with us. And I give credit to yourself and all children's authors out there, because death and grief and loss are very challenging in many ways for all of us, especially with our little ones. But there's something about children's books that, from a gentle perspective, they can just let kids know that everything is going to be okay, even though it may not necessarily make sense, even though you might be going through something very difficult. The grieving process really has no specific end date kind of thing. It's something that's just one of the many important components about children's books. I also wanted to talk once again, if I may, about the connection that you have with your illustrator. And Jenny Poe has done a tremendous job with the illustrations in the Woodland Friends series. And I really feel that this is a go-to series for kids. Like, growing up for me, it was kind of like Berenstain Bears and Boxcar Children, right? And when you have something special, I think it's important to take stock of that, right? Because, in writing children's books, there's a lot of authors that will do standalone books. They work with different illustrators, they work with different publishing companies, and each book is great unto itself. From the feeling that now you have 3 books in this series, what does this mean to you, knowing the fact that these stories continue to get better and better, that they're really not even just that you're expanding the relationship, you have this wonderful dynamic with Jenny, who really brings these characters to life and shows all their quirks and their characteristics. And the fact that this is becoming a go-to series for kids, like, this is kind of like a full circle question from my first question on, how has this been for you over the past year, but kind of just looking at things right now, do you ever find yourself saying, it's like kind of the pinching yourself, like, wow, like not only am I a children's author, but I've got this great series. I'm working with this amazing illustrator. There's 3 books out. Do you ever find yourself just kind of pinching yourself and say how lucky you are, how blessed you are?
Oh, absolutely. This has been a dream of mine. And since Porcupine's Pie, you know, that was my debut. That was my first book out. And that was 2018. So to be able to have now 4 books and 3 in the series out is just amazing to me. Being able to work with Jenny, I still, you know, the funny thing about writing picture books is that the author and the illustrator, you know, we might each have 50% of the story, but we don't interact with each other. So I've still, you know, I've very brief little interactions online with her, but as far as the creative side of it goes, that, you know, the illustrations are completely in her ballpark, and I am very happy to leave them with her because that is not where my forte is. But I think she's done such a fabulous job giving each of these characters their own, you know, taking the text and expanding on their personality in the illustrations, and they've become so much more well-rounded, being able to look at them. I just adore the cover of Squirrel's sweater. She has this kind of confused, quizzical look on her face, and I laughed out loud when I first saw it. This is Squirrel. This is exactly who she is. She is this, you know, clever, very, you know, fun-loving character, and this is going to be a challenge for her, this particular story, and to have that look on her face was exactly what I wanted to see. So I'm very fortunate to have her illustrating these books. They're just as much hers as they are mine.
And again, the fact that there's the different seasons of the year, and each character gets their own, as I mentioned, their own spotlight. You know, to hear that you're working on Doe, I think is absolutely wonderful. So again, there is Porcupine's Pie, there's Bear's Bicycle, and again, the newest release here that we're sharing on episode number 128 on the Children's Book Spotlight series as part of our 3 anniversary celebration of this program is Squirrel's Sweater. It is now available. You can head on over to Laura's official website, laurarenauld.com, or you can head on over to amazon.com. While on Amazon, again, if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, you can leave 5-star reviews for Porcupine's Pie, for Bear's Bicycle, and for Squirrel's Sweater. The entire Woodland Friends series now available, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Beaming Books. As we begin to wind down our time, everyone has their favorite season of the year. And, you know, for some people, it's kind of like, oh, you know, people can think of different misconceptions about fall, like, oh, it's going to get colder, or there's it's less dark. But, you know, we always like to raise people's spirits here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. Laura, what are some of the favorite things that you look forward to every autumn?
Fall is my favorite season. That's probably why that was the first season I wrote the story about. But I love the foliage. I grew up in Vermont, and the foliage was always a beautiful, beautiful thing to experience in the fall. And it's still very pretty in Virginia as well. And apple picking and pumpkin picking, those were family traditions. So I tried to continue those with my family. And, you know, you get those scents of cinnamon and cider, and it's just, I don't know, there's something very comforting and cozy about all of those things. And for me, taking walks in the woods and drinking some hot cider and, you know, going apple picking and just being part of that crisp fall air is just one of the things I look forward to every year.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that here in San Diego, it's still like 90 degrees, so
it's not crisp in Virginia either.
But it's you know, being out here, I was out here. It's been nearly a year since I've been out here in San Diego. You know, at night, especially if you go, you know, closer to the coastal area, closer to the ocean, you could easily wear a sweater. Now, you might not need the winter jacket or the parka or things of that nature, but there's something about putting on a nice cozy sweater. There always is. And, we encourage all of you who are tuning into episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight series to go into your closet and, find your favorite colored sweater and give it a nice hug. And even if it's got a little rip in it, or if it's got a little spot, sometimes if you're kind of having that pumpkin pie, you might dribble it on your sweater, just, give it a little blessing, put it in the wash. It'll come out better than ever. Or if not, you can make your own memory pillow out of it. We're showing this on screen right now. I love not only the further interaction that you're giving and providing for little ones, but the question that comes to mind is specifically, how did, you could have shared, the context of death and grief and loss and embracing change in different ways. What was it for you about the memory pillow, and why did you want to include that as part of the concluding passage in Squirrel's Sweater for the activity for kids?
It felt like a very natural extension of the story, since that's what Squirrel is able to do in her own narrative. So I thought, why not give kids an opportunity to make something similar that might be special to them from, it could be a baby blanket that they don't use anymore, or an old t-shirt that they used when they were, had their very first t-ball game or something. And there's lots of different memories that you can make. It doesn't have to be about a loved one that you've lost. It can be, it can be memories of a summer vacation that you took, or your favorite holiday, or your first day of school even. So there's all sorts of different ways to sort of hold those memories that we cherish close. And I hope that kids take that idea and those instructions at the back and make it completely their own, and something that they can hold on to that is special to them.
And plus it's comfy. It's so comfy because you provide more comfort to your heart, but you provide more comfort for, your head or your arms, or, sometimes people just like, clutching the pillows against their chest kind of thing as well too. Of course, one of the many really cool things is that we share an affinity for one of our favorite friends and neighbors, Mr. Rogers. And it's, it's been a very, I find myself, I believe it's been 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, from when the Tom Hanks Mr. Rogers film came out, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And, I watched his Lifetime Achievement Award acceptance speech at the Daytime Emmys just a couple of weeks ago. And in that, and throughout the different appearances on the neighborhood, college commencement speeches, things along the lines of that, he always remembered us, and he always kept the time, whether it be 10, 30, or 60 seconds. He asked us to remember those who helped love us into being. Now, I've asked you this question beforehand, and there's been a lot of change that's been happening over the course of the past several months. From when you last joined us, for the past several months, maybe there's someone new that came into your life, or a deeper affinity that you've had for someone that's been in your life for a long period of time. Who are some of the other people that you would like to mention, that you'd like to give recognition to on episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight series that have helped love you, Laura Renauld, into being?
I couldn't have gotten through being online, doing online schooling and being home with my kids and my family without my husband, Andy. He's absolutely been, our partnership, and it's been, a time where we've been able to grow in our own relationship, but also as parents. And so that's been a real blessing, as well as having local friends that have been very supportive and been able to call on if we need something. So I think I found more comfort in my local community this past year. And my parents and my in-laws are at a distance, so we travel to see them. And when you're stuck at home for a while, you need to be able to rely on people that are a little closer at hand. So I've feel very fortunate that I have some strong supports like that in this community that I live in.
Hmm. I feel that as things, and thank you for sharing that. I feel that, you know, one of the redeeming things that we can look at in life is that even though there's a lot of change and it can seem a little overwhelming, there's always people that always come onto our path that help us to navigate the change, right? So, you know, for example, let's say if you're, you know, writing your first children's book, right? There's people that will come into your life, whether it be, you know, some people will call them teachers, some people, you know, your illustrator, like just everything always has a way of working itself out. So I think it's just another, as we shift from summer scoot to winter warm up, it's just that reminder that change is something that can be embraced. It doesn't necessarily need to be feared. And especially when you have a magic genie lamp, well, there's no need to fear change in any way, shape, or form, because every day, literally, you can receive wishes. So, of course, Lord, this is the part of the program as we conclude things here. You know, a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors, the late Robin Williams. He played the voice of the genie in the lamp in the 1992 Disney animated classic Aladdin. 3 wishes. You know, as human beings, as kindred spirits, as beautiful hearts, as kind souls, we really have it within us to help ourselves and our fellow neighbors bring our dreams and visions to life. And I feel that, you know, especially with still kind of what's happening in the world since you last joined us, it's still an interesting place out there in that earthly realm, right? What would be 3 wishes that you would like to put out for the planet for this final quarter of the year, leading into the holiday season, the early part of 2022? What would be 3 wishes that you would like to put out for our fellow neighbors and for the planet as a whole?
I think our teachers and our frontline workers are in need of a great deal of love and respect, as well as rest. So I wish them rest and a time of revitalization so that they can still be those important roles in our community without getting burned out. It's something that I've put on my heart a lot recently. And we've talked about, you know, how kids can deal with change and are resilient, but there's also so much more. They still need more support and healing, I think, from this experience. There's so much more anxiety right now among children, and so my wish for them is to find some peace and comfort and support to help them through these difficult times, to be able to ask for help, and for the parents and caregivers and teachers to be able to find ways that they can support them in the needs that they have. And thinking a little more globally, but perhaps community-wise as well, I really wish for a peaceful resettlement for the Afghan refugees that have recently left, and also for the rest of them that would like to get out. So I really, really hope and wish that our communities embrace them and support them as they start new lives here.
Those are all beautiful wishes. And yeah, when we're navigating through uncertainty and wondering what's next, it's always great to put out those heartfelt intentions, whether you're a prayer warrior, just like putting out good vibes into the universe. That definitely helps us as individuals and us as a collective whole as well. So raise your hand if you have had fun on episode number 128 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. I'm kind of doing like a little, back in the 90s, there was this dance called the Macarena. And I haven't said the phrase the Macarena. My heavens, I am so outdating myself here. Just turned 40 several weeks ago. But yes, we see a lot of happy hands and a lot of happy kids on screen as well too. This has been a wonderful trolley stop, has it not? You know, Laura has entered into a very special club, by the way. Laura, congratulations on being a part of the 3-time guest club of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. You joined such luminaries, I like saying the word luminaries, in the kid-lit community as John Para, our dear friend, one of the great children's illustrators out there in the kid-lit community. If this message has inspired you, if you say, John and Laura, you know what, I am no longer fearing change. I'm actually like, I sometimes when I find myself in my office chair, I kind of do like this little baby bopping, like in the high chair. Sometimes like if a baby is excited, they're just kind of bouncing up and down in their high chair. That's kind of how I am right now. If you're saying, I am ready to embrace change. I'm ready to even have a loving relationship with change. If you feel that this message needs to be shared with someone in need, we encourage you, if you haven't had the chance to do so, to subscribe to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel and to be able to share this very special trolley stop that has been episode number 128 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. You can also, of course, share episode number 90 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series if you'd like to be able to learn more about Mr. Rogers, one of our favorite neighbors, and the debut release of Laura Fred's Big Feelings. You can check out episode number 90 with that, and then episode number 114 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, where we go in depth with Bear, our friend Bear, and Bear's bicycle. And of course, you can head on over to Laura's official website, laurarenauld.com, and amazon.com. Purchase your copies of the Woodland Friends series as the colorful gang is back. We have Porcupine's Pie and Bear's Bicycle, and of course, now Squirrel's Sweater. We're looking forward to many more trolley stops to come. Episode number 129, 130, etc., and so forth. If you are a children's author, if you are a children's illustrator, and you would like to share your inspiring story and the release of your brand new children's book here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series leading into the holiday season and beyond, you can head on over to our official website at empoweredpublicity.com or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. Empoweredpublicity.com and Facebook, Instagram, and Facebook and Instagram at Empowered Publicity, and Twitter at Empowered_PR. We also want to give 2 tips of the cap, of course, as we always share our affinity for Mr. Rogers. We also share our affinity for David Newell, who played the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. David joins us each and every month on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast as we deliver heartfelt reviews from the newest children's books, from the shining stars in the kidlit community here at Empowered Publicity. If you would like to be able to have David and I review your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you can head on over to our official website at empoweredpublicity.com. Also, a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors here in San Diego, Laura Kavanaugh, the host and executive producer of San Diego Living on CBS 8, the CW San Diego, which is the official home of Empowering Reads for Kids. We have the opportunities to share some of the newest heartfelt books from the shining stars in the kidlit community on television here in San Diego on CBS 8, the CW San Diego. If you would like for us to be able to share your wonderful new children's book with children, parents, families, educators, and all of those who love great children's books here in San Diego, as Ron Burgundy, an anchorman, would say, San Diego, you can head on over to our official website and visit our social media platforms as well to connect with us. And if you're interested in learning more about how we can be of service to you here at PR from the Heart, here at Empowered Publicity, as we're celebrating our 8th year here at Empowered Publicity, you would like to learn more information on how we can facilitate featured television interviews for you, book media tour in a city of your choosing, or more information on our media coaching and mentoring program, our official website where you can schedule your courtesy discovery call is empoweredpublicity.com. Again, one final time, Squirrel's Sweater. Squirrel takes front and center as winter warm-up approaches. You can head on over to the official website of Laura Renauld, fittingly enough, laurarenauld.com. If you also want to stay connected with Laura on her social media platforms, we have those on screen. If you want to be able to pledge your support for Laura, along with our friends and neighbors at Beaming Books, you can also purchase your copies of Porcupine's Pie and Bear's Bicycle, in addition to Squirrel's Sweater, at Amazon.com if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. One of our favorite neighbors, of course, we mentioned him once or twice or thrice throughout the course of episode number 128, is Mr. Rogers. He always reminded us on the neighborhood in different ways that he connected with us. He reminded all of us that we are perfect, we are whole, we are healthy, we are complete, that we are loved, that we are special just the way that we are. Just across yonder in my office, I have this beautiful poster of Mr. Rogers and Daniel's striped tiger, and it says, "There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way that you are." Somehow he weighed 143 pounds for his entire natural adult life. That was his way of saying, I love you. 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. As Laura was very kind to spend some time with us here once again for the 3rd time in the Children's Book Spotlight series, a reminder from all of us to you, from our hearts to yours, 243. Because there's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you. That's our reminder of saying that we love you, that you are perfect, you are whole, you are healthy, you are complete, that you are loved, that you are special, just the way that you are. We want to thank all of you once again for joining us here. Because of course, when we hear the trolley, that's that little reminder that means that it is time to go. But this has been such a wonderful trolley stop for all of you who have continued to pledge your support for the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight series, for tuning in over the course of these past 3 years. I am so blessed and so grateful for all of our new neighbors that come into our neighborhood, and for all of our wonderful shining stars that have been with us since day one, since September of 2018. So we want to thank all of you for not only your support of the Children's Book Spotlight series, but for your support of children's authors and children's illustrators, such as Laura, who are doing such great work for children, parents, families, and educators, and those who love great children's books. We want to thank all of you for your support of local libraries and for children's bookstores all across the country and around the world. But above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. So for Laura Renauld, I am John Masiulionis. This has been episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. We do hope that you enjoy your preparation for the winter warm-up, even if the temperature is not necessarily super cold just yet. We want to thank all of you once again for helping us to walk home the children of the world. Until next time, goodbye for now.